Hi, I'm Mike Dano with Light Reading, and we're here at the big 5G trade show here in sweaty Austin, Texas. And I'm here with Charlie from Napatech.
That's right.
And you guys are here. You've got a booth out here.
We have, yeah. We've been very busy today. This has been a great event for us so far.
Good, good. So maybe just for those of us who may not be familiar with Napatech, maybe give us sort of the background on what you guys are doing here.
Yeah, sure. So Napatech is a smart network interface card company, or a SmartNIC company. But what differentiates us from other companies in this space is we don't just slap an FPGA on a PCI Express card and call that a SmartNIC, and therefore make our customers program it. Our core expertise is in our software. So along with our FPGA-based SmartNIC hardware, we also provide complete software stacks. And those software stacks comprise not only the IP that is actually embedded in the FPGA that we develop, but also the host software running on the server that basically abstracts the SmartNIC from the application, because we make our software fully compatible with standard APIs. So what does that mean? So for our customers, instead of giving them a board with an FPGA that they have to program, which is next to impossible, what we do is we give them a true IT experience. So they take our SmartNIC hardware card and they install that in their server. They download the driver and run the driver, and then their application is accelerated without them having to make any changes or modifications to that application. Okay. So we call that a true IT experience.
Yeah. Are there companies that you see as ones that you're competing against, or is there sort of a standard process that you're selling into as an alternative?
Yeah, so there are other SmartNIC companies that we compete with, and generally, we beat them not only on the quality of our software, but also on the performance that we're able to get through using an FPGA approach as opposed to an ASIC approach.
And those would be companies like
Mellanox, for example. But in a lot of cases, and especially in this 5G space, our biggest competitor tends to be just legacy software-based implementations that folks have been doing forever. So for example, when people started to deploy their 5G packet core software, now because of the way the 5G standard is set up, as you know, the packet core is fully virtualized. It's not implemented in physical appliances. So people started doing just pure software implementations of their packet core, and that's what they've been deploying for the last 2 or 3 years. So there's a certain amount of inertia because that's what you've already got out there in the market, and is that good enough? And maybe there's some reluctance to switch it out to a more innovative higher performance offload solution. But what we're finding now is, especially with the move to standalone networks, people are obviously starting to look at new architectures and new approaches to deploying that infrastructure. So now they're very ready and willing to look at new solutions, as long as those solutions are going to give them well-defined business benefits, such as being able to support a lot more subscribers on an edge data center and get an 80% reduction in their capex and opex. I mean, there are business metrics here which really will get people's attention.
Right, I was going to ask you about that. So if you were approaching customers to try to sell them this, what is the main driver for them to upgrade to a product like this?
So if we're talking to an end user, which could be, typically it's going to be either a telco service provider or maybe an enterprise that's deploying a private network. We would typically start by asking them, if they would like to be able to support, say, 40 times as many subscribers in their edge data center as what they can do with their existing implementation. Those kind of numbers, will get somebody's attention. Or we might ask them how they would like to reduce their, 5-year capex and opex by 70%. We would typically lead with those kinds of business propositions. That will usually then get the attention of an exec, and you'll get to then explain the technical details of the solution,
how does that work?
To the technical team. Yes, that's usually how we would start.
And so that is certainly, those topics are certainly ones that are being covered at this show, whether, you need to increase capacity, whether you need to cut costs, whether you need to deploy private wireless networks for enterprises. So at this show, have you been hearing any sort of new trends, like from your perspective as sort of deep into that network layer? Are you seeing anything sort of new bubbling up, either at this show or sort of this year in terms of like new issues that your customers are coming to you with, or new trends that you might be seeing?
I think the main trend that we've been seeing probably for the last 6 to 9 months now is the trend around fairly small private network deployments. And as opposed to the giant telco networks that we're all familiar with. So we've seen a lot of use cases. Some of them are industrial, for example. Other of them might be just campus networking, where there's a real need to deploy a 5G network that is a private network that is extremely cost effective. And so those kinds of customers and companies are coming to us, with the challenge of, hey, I want to put a complete packet core in maybe a 1U server or perhaps a 2U server for some redundancy. But I want to not only run the packet core, but also perhaps I want to run my RAN CU, and maybe I also want to run some MEC applications, perhaps for security or for surveillance or something. So we're seeing people really trying to cram in a lot of functionality in a small footprint edge deployment. And of course, our solutions help them a great deal with that, because we can offload the user plane function, which is by far the highest consumer of compute cycles within the packet core. We offload that, run that data plane on the SmartNIC. That then frees up the server cores to run all these other functions that the companies are looking for.
And is there any power savings or energy savings on that?
There's massive energy savings.
Because that's a huge topic right now.
Yeah, and that's actually the biggest part of the OpEx comparison that I was just talking about is in terms of power. Because what you're really doing is you're reducing the total footprint in terms of numbers of servers and number of NICs to support a given number of subscribers. And of course, as you take away all those servers and those NICs, then you save all that energy.
Right.
And that's becoming a big topic with the folks that we're talking about. I would say it's never the number one driver of making a decision.
Okay.
But it's certainly nice once they've made that decision, then they can tell everybody how green they are compared to other alternatives.
Which is a nice story to be able to tell.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they just typically they don't lead with that, but it comes up pretty quick after they made the decision.
All right, so most important question for you. You and I have spoken before about some of your outdoor adventures. You're quite the outdoorsman. I've come to understand. What is your next big trip this year? What do you got cooking?
Well, I don't know for sure. The one that I'm thinking about is called the Cockapelli Trail, which I think you're slightly familiar with.
I maybe heard of it.
So the Cockapelli Trail is a beautiful mountain biking trail. It runs for about 160 miles through western Colorado and eastern Utah, basically from a town called Fruita in Colorado to Moab in Utah. And it's a mountain biking trail, but I'm not a mountain biker, I'm a hiker, and I like to do, reasonably crazy hikes. So I am thinking about hiking the Cockapelli Trail, probably later this summer. The main problem I haven't been able to solve yet is there's about a 45-mile stretch in the middle where there are no water sources. Which is not great in the Colorado summer. And also, I can't find any Jeep roads on the map that would allow my wife to come in and maybe kindly drop some water for me. So I'm still kind of thinking through the logistics, because I do want to show up at this show next year, physically here.
We would like to have you back.
Yeah, yes. I don't want to show up just as like a memory of this guy you talked to the previous year that was an idiot.
Loving memory of.
Yeah, so I'll keep you posted. But you want to come do it with me?
I was going to say that it sounds like what I'm hearing is that you need Light Reading to fund a mountain biker to come stash water for you halfway through that section. And I think that is a viable business expense.
Actually, can you do a drone drop instead?
Well,
because I'll have a lot more confidence if Light Reading drops me some water from a drone than send some guy on a mountain bike.
Yeah, that does sound a little bit more.
Unless you're volunteering to be the mountain biker.
Yes, that's actually what is.
Okay,
definitely
and I'll get a
here.
picture and GPS on where you drop the water.
Correct.
We'll give that some thought.
I do need a new bike. I mean,
well, Light Reading will pay for the bike.
I think so too.
And probably the water.
I mean,
so
it's probably
okay. Well, we obviously have a lot more to talk about after this event is over.
Yeah. As soon as we're done here. Sure. Right. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us today.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mike. Thank you.